Alright, this is a new series I want to introduce to the channel, and if possible, it is a series I would like to do consistently and often alongside the unpopular opinions videos. This is actually an idea from another popular YouTuber. I reached out to him, asked for permission to use this idea. He gave me the green light. His name is Thor Skywalker. He's one of the longer standing Star Wars content creators on YouTube, and if you like to go into in-depth conversations and discussions of the Star Wars culture, content, entertainment, and fan base, he's your go-to guy. He's got some of the best commentary videos out there. So I want to say thank you to Thor for this idea of his and letting me go through with it, and hopefully this becomes a big hit on the channel. This is where I get you, the viewers, and the voters to vote on a scale of 1 to 4, a 4-star rating system, 4 out of 4 being top tier and 1 out of 4 being very unlikable. YouTube took away the 5th spot on our rating system. I was originally going to do A, B, C, D, or F, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and instead I decided to go with stars. I might do A, B, C, and D, but for now the stars is what I think is going to be my thing. This is going to be our way to get votes on every single DC character we can possibly get through, and we're going to put them amongst a list on which DC character rates the highest of all of them. This could be a very interesting way to see what my viewer base thinks of certain characters, or what other fans of DC Comics thinks of these characters who maybe don't watch me, or maybe what even general audiences think of these characters. So every single time I put up one of these polls, I'm gonna let it sit for about a week, calculate as much data as it can, and then I'm going to calculate the final score throughout the rest of these videos. Very similarly to the unpopular opinions, we're going to go through some comments to see how we feel about these particular characters. So with that being said, starting with Batman, arguably the most popular character in DC Comics. He has an 83% for 4 stars, 14% for 3 stars, 2% for 2 stars, and a very low 1% for 1 star. Calculating all of those numbers up, Batman sits at a 3.8 star rating, which when using a 4-star rating system, that would be an A+ character. And I don't think that's a surprise here whatsoever. No matter where you go or where you look, Batman will always have a majority of people who like him rather than disliking him. I personally think, and maybe this is just me being such a big fan of Batman, and even at times a biased fan of Batman, I'm a little surprised the number isn't even higher than that. I'm surprised we're not looking at a 3.94 score for him, or maybe even higher than that. But at the end of the day, 3.80 is not that bad at all. So let's look at some of your comments and see what some of you had to say on why you think Batman is this great of a character, or why you don't. That 1% is from his entire rogues gallery and their goons. It honestly might have just been the Riddler. He probably made an account, rated it 1%, used some bots to buff up the numbers a little bit, and still he lost in spectacular fashion. In all honesty though, this is exactly what I was saying. No matter where you go or where you look, Batman is always going to be a top tier character. If you asked 100 people, do you like Batman or not, I could guarantee you at least 97 or 98 people in that room would end up saying, yeah, I like Batman. Hey, it may not be their favorite character, it may not be someone they always read or watch or whatever else, but it will be a character that they will be able to claim, yeah, Batman's cool. Who wouldn't like Batman? Not liking Batman is absolutely okay. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. However, with that being said, people who don't like Batman are in such an extreme minority, it almost feels unreal to know someone who doesn't like Batman. Also, too, putting into consideration that if his villains actually had the opportunity to vote on this poll, I think you would see some varying differences. I think some of his villains would possibly rate him a 2 or a 3, not pure hatred in a 1. And if you had the Joker, he would literally find a way to tell YouTube to bring back that 5th rate option so he could give him 5 stars. Which, by the way, I have no idea why YouTube took away the 5th poll option. If they ever come back with the 5th poll option, we'll be able to do this again and see how the numbers differ. IsleofPigsStudios. He's one of the most iconic heroes. Even if you haven't seen any of his adventures, you've at least heard of him. 4 stars. Yeah, I mean, when you say superhero, when you say comic book, I can guarantee you right now, most people, the first images that come into their head is either going to be something about Spider-Man or Batman. It's really hard to escape any sort of craze that Batman offers. That could definitely be a reason as to why people might not like Batman all that much, because of how much he is shoved in our faces and put into our content. But I also believe that shows Batman's name power and staying power. The fact that he's been able to remain this relevant for such a long amount of time and is continuing to do so at such a high rate is quite impressive. Even as you say here, if you don't know all of Batman's adventures, you're bound to know something. You will know about the Adam West, or the Michael Keaton, or the Christian Bale, or the animated series, or the comic books, the video games, Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson. There is bound to be some form of Batman you will know, and I could guarantee you one at the very least you will enjoy. Justice C. I rated him 4 stars because I think he teaches us lessons about human nature. For example, when his parents die in front of him, he shows that grief is a natural feeling that humans can have when they lose loved ones. But he also shows that humans can act out in irrational ways when they lose loved ones. I think he's a highly impacting character to comic books and readers. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. I know it can be funny or strange to hear when people say Batman is so likable and so popular because you can relate to him. And then in return, the comments are, how can you relate to someone who knows 127 different fighting styles, who glides around a city like a bat, and is an ultra billionaire? And I don't believe that is what most people are trying to convey when they say something like that. It is the simple fact of understanding what it means to be a human, and then what it means to go through hardships such as him. You don't need to have experienced the exact same grief or heartache that Bruce Wayne experienced in his time being a character in comic book panels, but you certainly can understand and attach to aspects of his character when going through those similar emotional states in your own life. Another factor that is very important to him is, obviously put, the human factor of him. We are reading stories from a world that is surrounded by supernatural forces and aliens in any corner you look within the DC universe. Batman is one of the few, but also one of the very few extremely talented humans who is capable of standing up amongst those super powerful creatures, let alone gods. And I know for me myself, I usually like to go for underdogs. I like to see underdogs excel, and I like to see an underdog get to a point where they are no longer viewed as an underdog anymore because they've earned that right. And Batman is literally the representation of that type of character. And there is absolutely something very powerful about someone who can do something like that. The Unbothered Son. You're talking about the greatest detective, third of the DC Trinity, half of the world's finest, one of the founding members of the Justice League, head of Batman Inc., the guy they make a movie about every 3 to 5 years. The guy described as from everyone across the board as someone you don't F with. Absolutely. The gadgets he carries every night with him are not the only things hanging from his belt. He has a multitude of accolades. He is one of the very few characters, as you say, always gets movies made about him. He's the only character with some of the most successful video games made. He's the only character that is deemed to be worthy to show up in other characters' movies on a steady basis. He's the only character who seems to consistently get animated shows or movies made about him based off of popular books or created through an original idea. And in a lot of ways, he's the only character that has kept DC interesting in the past 10 years, and B, the only one who has kept DC alive. People who are in the minority are more than free to feel that he is an overrated character. That's fine. But we cannot deny that without Batman, there's a really good chance DC would not be here today. ThatWizardLizard. Personally, I think Batman is a very well-written character, but I think people giving him a 4-star are just people who are in love with the mythos around him and not the character himself. I personally don't really agree with this. However, I do understand what you're saying, and there is a chance that there is truth to it, for other people at least. Nowadays, it's hard to look at Batman and not see his rogues gallery or the world around him. What has happened is, after so many years of seeing different interpretations, we've come to this conclusion of you have to be one crazy SOB to go up against a man like this. With saying that, we've now started to want to dive in more into his villains to truly understand why people like them would want to go up against Batman. What is it about Gotham City that makes every single one of these characters do what they do and become what they become? Is it poor family upbringings? Is it short on financials? Or is it something about this city that is so corrupt and cursed, it is inevitable that the day will come where we will see a man dressed in a high-tech bat suit fighting a crocodile through the slums of Gotham? Whereas Batman is an extremely interesting archetype and Bruce Wayne is a very complex human being to understand, that must mean the villains have to be up there somewhere with him. So because of that, it would be hard to fall in love with Batman, but nothing else of the extended world he comes from. To me, they're exclusive, they're one and the same, and they all come together as a package. Noah Olson. I love Batman. I really do. One of my favorites. But, and it's a big but, I hate how he steals the thunder from literally every other DC superhero. DC relies on him too much. I can't even sit here and deny this statement. It is just evidently true. No matter where you look today, it is Batman everything. Even too in really big events in the DC universe, there are times where Batman is saving the day or becoming a version of himself that really just does not make sense. And being that biased Batman fan, more or less I'm okay with it. But I also do realize that sometimes the main continuity comic books are just ridiculous. And it's just one of those situations where you read it and you move past it. I do believe a big thing that has happened is when they finally made that plunge into making Batman a character who can rightfully so stand up amongst these gods, heroes, and villains. Over the past 10 to 15 years in comic books, a lot of these characters, human-oriented or supernatural-oriented, alien-oriented, they're always one-upping each other in power and scaling. This character is becoming more powerful than that character, or this character is developing and showcasing an ability that makes them 10 times more powerful than they were a couple of issues ago. I believe what has happened is they've continued to make Batman upgrade in his power scaling and to make him so ridiculously OP because they can't let him fall short from what he has now become. He, in all honesty, is very likely the poster boy of DC. Because of that, they're not willing to allow Batman to return to the days of just being a regular Cape Crusader who beats up low-life thugs. He is so much more than that nowadays. It's not saying he can't be that, he can be both, but we do need to realize that he has so vastly grown from that. With that, obviously, comes the fact that he shows up in literally everything. Even if it is a character you would not imagine would need Batman involved, they'll involve him. It's a bit of 50-50. They realize how much comic fans really love Batman. They also realize how much the general audience loves Batman. As a corporation, they've realized how much money the character makes. And as long as a character makes money, they're not gonna let him sit out for a little bit because they think that they've been using him too much. If he's bringing in the bread, they're just gonna keep on doing it. S. Owl. I voted 2 because I'm tilted by all the D-writing of writers trying to make peak human look like the Thing in a cowl, and his intellect look like he pre-read the script of his own comics and shows. And the fans aren't much better with how much they cope, so Batman can win any fight by acting like prep time equals plot armor and quoting his most ridiculous feats, as if every comic character doesn't have some insane feat at some point. I know what I read, but all I heard was a 4-star character, no such thing as plot armor with Batman, is unstoppable and could defeat anybody he wanted, including 10 Dr. Manhattans at one time. Sounds about right. Finally, this comment from Batman himself. Batman is the GOAT of DC. And I think that is the truth. Batman has led DC into most of their profits over the past generation, if not longer. He's not just the GOAT of DC, he is the GOAT of all superheroes, at least alongside with Spider-Man. Obviously, there is Superman, but I think that is more so about the respect purposes of where superheroes come from. Batman and Spider-Man are the most relevant today. They're the most talked about. They're the most appreciated. They're the most loved. Batman's importance, relevancy, and popularity transcended people when he was first created, and it's still going to transcend people today, such as myself, such as you guys, and people moving forward. In a lot of ways, Batman is so far beyond just a comic book character. He has become a pop culture icon. He is a symbol of entertainment. There you go, guys, the first video of rating DC characters. So what's going to happen now is you guys feel free to leave in the comments below how you feel about Batman having the rating of 3.8 stars, and maybe some other thoughts on what you think of Batman. I'm also going to leave a comment pinned in which you guys will be able to vote on the next character you'd like to see covered. I was going to go right over to Superman, but I'm going to leave it into your hands. Whichever comment within my pinned comment gets the most likes, that is the character we are going to be moving forward with next. But that's all I got for you on this one, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.